And something just washed over me and was like, everything that you've ever wanted could be on the other side of this. And I was like, what are the things that I've always dreamed of that did not think would be accessible? And leaving the United States was one of those things. And so once that seed was planted, where I was like, okay, there is a path here that I could find and take to actually live out my dream of living abroad, my entire energy shifted. I was like in grind mode and started utilizing my skills to continue building out this business, a holistic wellness business that I could take anywhere in the world. And that is what helped me transition out of the United States. I ended up leaving my job in October of 2020. We were already virtual, and left the United States in January 2021.
What's going on, everybody? It's Abby here with another episode of Modern Day Unicorns. And today I have a very special guest named Meckell. And I was also recently on her show. So now we're reciprocating. But Meckell, please, thank you for coming, first of all. And I want you to please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Well, thank you for having me, Abby. It's nice to be in conversation with you again. My name is Meckell. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I am born in Louisiana. I was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a digital nomad. I'm a world traveler and a content creator.
See, now you said a mouthful there, so we're going to dig into each and every one of those, because I was like, ooh, can I add that to mine too? So, okay, let's start with how we met. Let's go ahead and do that first, because I think that was the most interesting thing so far.
Yeah, so we met. We both have been strengthening our commitments in this content creation world, and particularly YouTube. And so we met at an event for a program that we're a part of called Video Ranking Academy. And it's with the Think Media team. I've been following them for quite a while, have been going to their conferences and things like that. And I just so happened to be like, it's time, made the commitment, ended up meeting you in a breakout room, virtual breakout room. And immediately we were just like, what's up? Like, where are you at? Oh my God, you're in the UAE, you're in Mexico. Like, so many questions, I think, just bubbled up for me. And we exchanged information. I think you maybe even emailed me while we were still in the event. And we're like, yes, let's collaborate, let's connect. So, it's been really fun to get to know you, primarily even through these interviews, right? Like the space that we've been sharing. So,
absolutely. Yeah, so that was that's one tip for you all from the get-go. Whatever you're participating in, I know I'm a part of a ton of different courses and things like that. One of the things that I've been trying to do is make a list of everything that I have access to and being able to utilize those resources. So with Video Ranking Academy, they host, a number of different events, and being able to go there and meet, like-minded individuals who are all, working towards a goal, that was sweet. So we have this opportunity to collaborate together, and I think that's great. Now, I want to get more into you personally, because I think what sparked the conversation was the fact that you're in Mexico. I live abroad and things of that nature. Can you take us through maybe what you were doing before you moved abroad, and what sparked you up and moving to Mexico?
Yeah. So first, let me just say that today is the exact 1 year anniversary of me waking up in Mexico on this new journey. So I'm happy and honored to be kind of sharing and celebrating in that with you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So if we back up to the year before that, 2020, at January 2020, we didn't know what was coming, right? Like, we had no idea that the world was about to change. And I had already started planting seeds with myself about leaving my job. Like, I really wanted to start my own business. I've been in the health and wellness field for more than 15 years, and I was working at a university at the time. I really did love my job, but I saw a path to start something on my own. So when 2020 started, I was living in the Bay Area. I was married. I was working at a university full time. And what I was putting energy into was saving some money so that when I did leave my job, it would be a smooth transition. Well, my marriage started coming to an end, which is a great thing. The pandemic happened, which is not a great thing, but it did open up a lot of opportunity for people to see different realities that could exist for them. And I happen to be one of them. So there was a moment where, regardless of how a relationship is ending for you, whether it's fantastic, whether it's really challenging, it can still be a lot to process. And there's a moment when all the decisions and everything happening in the world started feeling a little overwhelming. And something just washed over me and was like, everything that you've ever wanted could be on the other side of this. And I was like, what are the things that I've always dreamed of that did not think would be accessible? And leaving the United States was one of those things. And so once that seed was planted, where I was like, there is a path here that I could find and take to actually live out my dream of living abroad, my entire energy shifted. I was like in grind mode and started utilizing my skills to continue building out this business, a holistic wellness business that I could take anywhere in the world. And that is what helped me transition out of the United States. I ended up leaving my job in October of 2020. We were already virtual, and left the United States in January 2021.
So why Mexico?
Why Mexico? So,
or how did you narrow it down to Mexico?
Yeah. I think the pandemic happening at the time kind of framed what my options were. Mexico has been my favorite country to travel to for a while. So I will say that I really love Mexico. And there's a lot of Mexico that I had not seen. There's so much difference here in different parts, so much to learn and see, different history throughout the country. And so Mexico felt like a good place to start. I think for me, I was like, I'm going to head to Mexico. It felt accessible during the pandemic. It felt safer from what I was learning about than where I was, which was Louisiana by the end of 2020. In terms of what I saw with protocol and things like that, because my COVID anxiety was like getting kind of high in the southern United States. So I'm like, I'll start there, and who knows? I think the pandemic will probably be ending in a few months, and then maybe I can travel. Yes, famous last words. It is now 2022, But yeah, I think there was a desire to just land somewhere. And Merida, Yucatan, on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico was where I started. Mexico also is very close to the United States, so that's something that I have really grown to appreciate. And since then, I have traveled from Merida to Oaxaca City, Puerto Escondido, Mexico City, and I think one other city, San Jose del Pacifico. But I decided to I decided to stay longer term in Mexico City. I really fell in love with the city. There's so much here. And in September of 2021, I got an apartment here. So this will be home base.
So what I can appreciate about, what you were saying is, as you narrowed down where you wanted to go, I'm not really sure if you had any other places in mind, but even when you got to Mexico, you didn't just go and set roots in one place. That you gave yourself permission to kind of float around a little bit before you committed to or stay longer term in a certain area, which I like that process. I feel like a lot of people say, they spin the globe around and they point here and they say, I must go to Queens or something like that, So I can appreciate that. So what I want to ask, what a lot of people probably would ask is, oh, you're in Mexico. They speak Spanish. Did you have to learn how to speak Spanish before you moved down there?
Really good question. So growing up on the West Coast, it's like Spanish, we heard a lot of Spanish. A lot of people in community also spoke Spanish. And so I've taken classes throughout my life. Middle school, I actually took French in high school, but we won't talk about that. I took Spanish in college, and then actually when the pandemic was happening, it's so funny how things just will happen in life and you don't really know why. But when the pandemic started, I was actually in a class at the university that I was working at, a Spanish class. It was like I really wanted to work on my Spanish. I didn't realize that I'd be living in Mexico, but so I had some experience with the Spanish language and really have had a goal for a lot of my adult life to just sharpen my skills. Well, coming to Mexico is definitely a deep dive in trying to strengthen language skills. So my Spanish has gotten a lot better in the last year. I also took classes virtually throughout the first few months of me being here, but nothing can prepare you for actually speaking.
Full immersion.
Yeah, that has been the biggest thing that's kind of impacted my skills. People have moved here and not had any Spanish language skills, so it has been more of like a, bath by fire kind of experience. But yeah, it is important to know some of the language. And I think that's just a tip for anyone who's wanting to move anywhere in the world is like be familiar at least with the basics of that language. Because one thing I've noticed about Mexico, people are really patient, people are really kind, people are really open and understanding that people may not be fluent in the language, but there's such a deep appreciation when you are trying, when you're practicing, when you're speaking to someone in their own language. It really says a lot. So, it can go far.
That's awesome. So another thing that you brought up was that you moved to Mexico with a business in mind or already established. And what I want to get some more information about is oftentimes you see people moving abroad and just doing whatever, or moving abroad and, like for myself, teaching or already having a specific job in motion. So with you relocating and also being an entrepreneur, how are you navigating and handling your business in that right? So like, are you serving in Mexico or are you serving, worldwide? How did you create those transitions and get established with that?
Yeah. So I think that if someone's interested in moving abroad, whatever feels most accessible. Like for me, having had a pretty lengthy career in a particular field, I saw opportunity to be able to take that abroad, right? To be able to meet with people. And I think because the pandemic had started and my work at the university was already virtual, I think that helped to paint a picture of me that, I could meet with clients virtually. I can do yoga classes virtually or things like that. In terms of how I structured that, all of my clientele is United States based. And one thing that I don't know if I've named this, but I consider myself a very spiritual person. And so as I'm making plans and trying to figure out what things will look like moving forward, I'm paying attention to the ease, to some of the signs and how affirming things that are happening are. So when I left my job in October 2020, I had started kind of planting seeds to get clients maybe September, just so that I could get a bit of a head start. By the end of October, I had a full schedule of clients that I wanted, like not full time, but I wanted to do like part-time work because I had saved a lot of money that could support me in like actually being able to experience living abroad.
Right.
But yeah, I had the full roster that I wanted of people to work with. So I felt like that was really affirming. So everyone I work with is in the United States. I think that has been really easy to navigate because I'm able to, just tailor the workshops, the spaces I'm holding, the classes that I put out, and just the way that I make my services accessible people would know where I was in the world. I try to keep some consistency, whether that is just always having good lighting, good sound, trying to be really aware of what my needs are as a digital nomad also. So if I'm moving around, maybe not having any clients scheduled for that first day, so that I can make sure I have good Wi-Fi and a stable environment to be able to work from. So I'm thinking about that, not just for my own peace of mind as an entrepreneur and digital nomad, but also so that the client experience is good. Another thing I'll mention about an area of work that was growing is wanting to do retreats here in Mexico. So open to anyone, anywhere in the world. But I think with the social media and some of the ways that the business is promoted, a lot of folks from the United States end up connecting with the services. Yeah.
I like how you had the opportunity to think ahead on those things, even when it came to, saving up money. Yes. And if you're comfortable with it, if you could throw out maybe a figure that you would advise somebody kind of get together, because I undercut what I thought I would need. And I was going into a teaching situation where I'd have, housing and things like that. But like those first couple months drained what I thought was sustain me. So if you could give like a healthy amount that you would advise somebody before they took the leap, what kind of figure would that be?
Yeah. So this can really range because I am a single individual, so I'm only saving money for myself. And I had started saving in August 2019 with a thought that I was going to start my own business, not knowing I'd be moving abroad. So about a little more than a year of savings from each check. And this figure is just based on like what was accessible for me to be able to save, but I saved about $1,000 a month for a little more than a year. And then again, looking for affirmation to take the leap. When I left my job, actually when I was about to put in my notice, my job released a severance program. So I was able, it was really like the final affirmation. Because I think for me, I was teetering at the end where I was just like, well, I could just stay working for the university where we're remote right now. But there was something larger planned for me. Spirit was really like, I said that it's time to take a leap and like start your business. So it was like the final, here's some money. There's a severance program. So I applied for that, and that supported as well. And so that gave me some flexibility, because I'll also say with me moving to Mexico, peso versus United States dollars, pesos are something that I was able to, well, I'll say the United States dollar stretches more in the country of Mexico. And so that's something that I was conscious of as well. So yeah, I was like, okay, I felt like with what I had saved, I would be good for the first year of living in Mexico, and I could figure out everything and have some space to really dive into the business and, not be anxious about money or anything like that. So that was the number for me. But I'll also name when I first started traveling abroad, which was in my 30s, actually, I wasn't making as much money, and I was saving $200 from each check if I could, just to try to support my visions and goals of traveling abroad. So wherever you are financially, whatever you have access to, that would definitely be something I would recommend, is to, start putting a little money away, because it'll take some anxiety away once you actually take the leap.
I mean, and that's absolutely true. If anything, it's just not necessarily leaving broke, because you don't want to get somewhere, where you're making a life-changing decision, or even if you're just visiting, and not be able to do anything. Like, of course, having a local experience is cool in some places and things like that, but what's the point? But going somewhere, not having the capital to experience it in a authentic way, can be a little bit of a downer. So preparation is good.
Yeah. For me, I knew it would really support me in just being a lot more cool, calm, collected. And yeah, like you said, being able to explore some and not wanting to work full time, which I never want to work full time. So I think I started with the end in mind, kind of like they teach us in Video Ranking Academy, right? Like starting with the end in mind. If I'm going to create a business, if I'm going to create a life for myself, if I'm going to move abroad, I don't want to be working 40, 50, 60 hours, and then maybe getting out on the weekends. I really wanted to create an opportunity for me to be able to get out and see stuff and be able to explore and enjoy good food, which is like one of my favorite things in the world. But I do hear stories from people that are just like, I just packed all my stuff and I left. I didn't have a plan, didn't have a job. And I always deeply appreciate that. But my anxiety could never. I could never. So
that's not everybody's story. So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Is this your first business venture? How did you decide to be like, okay, great. Like, not only am I going to move abroad, but I'm also going to, be an entrepreneur and things of that nature. I understand you spoke earlier about having your clientele already developed in a manner where you personally said, this is how much I want, which is another great thing to have because you can overwhelm yourself when people keep wanting you. But you say, I want 8 clients. Yeah. I can take 15, but I want 8. Yeah. So, how did you come to say, all right, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is how, from leaving your job to saying this is what's going to happen and I'm going to be somewhere else.
Yeah. So I think you kind of named one thing, which is having boundaries with myself. Again, being really clear of the life I wanted, because I felt like if I'm going to put a lot of energy into something and this is a passion, this is work that I love doing, I've been doing it for a while. I don't want to bog myself down letting that anxiety take over. I'm like, I want as many clients as possible. I want to make sure that I'm getting as much income coming in as possible, and then just like burn myself out. So I really needed to set boundaries with myself. And that meant every opportunity, every client that came in, everything that was sent my way in the entrepreneurial realm, having to really think about it, take my time with the decision and figure out, is this what I want long term? And what is the commitment in this? Is this just a one-time thing? Is this a long-term thing? So that, first and foremost, this is my first entrepreneurial effort. And so I think, I did a lot of research. I talked to people, but really nothing can prepare you. You just kind of, when they say take a leap, boy, do they mean take a leap, because you really don't know what is on the other side. And there's so many things that you have to learn. You just kind of have to experience in order to understand better. But I think one of the most important things is something that we were kind of talking about earlier, which is having flexibility. I don't think we named it as that, but I really had to go in with some flexibility in mind. And that was for the entrepreneurial effort. That is also for just moving abroad, because I think when we do something as big as start a business, we can really feel like, okay, I said I was going to do this thing, and I want to stick to this thing, even though all the signs are saying, leave that part of the business behind, or let this evolve or change. I have really had to become good at listening to the things that were shifting and changing in the business. And that really gave me a lot of freedom and taught me a lot of lessons about flexibility and adaptability, and understanding that nothing is going to, the only constant is change. And I really like that quote, because it's so real. The only constant is change. So I'll give a little story around that. When I first, at the start of the pandemic, was working more heavily on structuring a business, a part of my business was having an Etsy store where I was making herbal medicines. And it was a part of the business that, it started from my love of herbalism, and it was just a really beautiful way for me to be in relationship with plant medicine. And it was the part of the business that took off first because it was so visible, right? Like people can't necessarily be like, hey, this is my health and wellness coach, or this is, they're not necessarily promoting through their social medias their one-on-one work with me. But what they were promoting were pictures of the products and the labels and, everything like that. And so I started getting more interest. I started getting people telling me this is the part of the business that's going to, you could be a multimillionaire with this, like getting all this advice that this is the thing. People really love health and wellness, medicines. And so there was just something in my spirit that was like, I don't think this is it for me. I wasn't as happy fulfilling orders for demand, because when I started, I was just kind of making different medicines and then I would put them in the Etsy store. But once people liked certain products, then it was like supply and demand, and it was growing. I had to do it a lot more. It was taking a lot more money than I thought to like pay for the supplies. And I just wasn't as centered on joy as I did it. And then again, thinking about what I wanted, once I realized I wanted to leave the United States, I'm like, is this going to be even sustainable when I leave the US? Because who's going to be wanting to buy a tincture from Mexico and like pay that shipping? So I made the decision to start winding down. And I think people really didn't understand. They're just like, why would you? Like, this is something that can take you so far, and it's such a cool part of the business. And it just wasn't in the cards for me. And that was a really great decision because it gave me some space to focus on the things that I really wanted to see grow and the things that were going to support my life abroad. So that's an example of like having to be willing to let go of something and give it room to shift and change. And that has been probably the biggest lesson in this past year, is like, don't be so stuck on it being one thing. Like if you're meant to move abroad, if you're meant to start your business, you have to give it some room to breathe. Yeah.
Well, that's super important. I was discussing with somebody the other day about the fact that you just can't keep doing what people say that you're good at all the time. And just because you're good at it, that's great. But that's not the only thing that you can do. And there's, plenty of areas that we can all develop in. But, once you reach that point, and I reached a point in my life to where my job just it wasn't interesting anymore to me. I was good at it. I was thankful for that. But I knew that there was more to do. And so, just a caution to people who just get too comfortable. Like, the constant is change. Nobody knew the world would change how it has, which is one of the reasons why that prompted me to venture out into my freelance entrepreneurial journeys, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next few minutes, let alone days and years. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask, like, we got a couple more questions to get through. So thank you for your time thus far. So how did you overcome certain fears or challenges, or if you could share any example, like how did you just say, okay, this is it, like, let's go?
Yeah. So I was reflecting on my first year as an entrepreneur recently. And one of the things that emerged was, I gave myself the freedom to remind myself of a backup plan. And then I let that go. Right. So I'm like, okay, I have a work history. I could always go back to the States. I could always go back to Louisiana. And I could get a job, or I could find a remote job and work for someone else. Like, those are valid options. And so once I solidify, like, this is the backup, like, there's no issue. I have no qualms about maybe starting a business for a year, and then if the business felt like, okay, it was time for it to wind down, I don't see things like that as failure. And so just like, if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. So once I like established that kind of backup plan and foundation, I was like, okay, but we're doing this. So get your backup plan and then let it go, because we don't want to lean on that when we're going to have to make all these decisions and like take these risks moving into the entrepreneurship and moving abroad, you know. So that was one of the ways I kind of confronted fear, was like let my mind go into what if, and then being like, okay, let it go. Let's keep our eyes on moving forward and just assume that everything's going to work out for the best. And so I think that was really supportive. I also think something I mentioned earlier, which is paying attention to some of the signs and the things that were being affirmed. So like being able to get the severance package from work, like that was a really big sign that was like, keep moving forward, like, you know, stop dilly-dallying, just like keep moving forward. Another thing was when I left Louisiana to actually head to New Orleans so I could catch my flight to Mexico, my family had sent me a YouTube video that they had made. It was like a compilation of videos from family members around the country. And they were all saying like, we're so proud of you. Like, we're excited for this next journey. It like that blew my mind. And to me, that was like such a beautiful affirmation, because my family just has always seen me as the free spirit, and like, we don't know what Meckell's doing next, but Meckell is gonna do what she does. So I didn't really know how people felt about me being like, okay, I'm leaving the United States. But I couldn't worry about that, right? So when I left and actually received this really beautiful affirmation and support from them, I was like, wow, like this is actually a huge deal, and I have the support of my community behind me. So it was really, those things help to calm my fears. But fears are normal, and I think we have to keep moving through them to make any change, especially something as big as leaving the country that you're from and moving abroad or taking a leap into entrepreneurship. There's going to be fears. It's all about your relationship with those fears. How do you let it stop you? How do you let other people's fears stop you? How do you let the fear of like, what if it doesn't work out, which is like, sometimes it's not going to work out. That doesn't mean that it wasn't in the plans. Like, as this year comes to an end, it could have very much been like, this was my year in Mexico. All right, your girl heading back to the United States, about to get this good 9 to 5, you know? Like, that could have been my story, y'all. And we still could have been having this conversation, but it's not. And I wouldn't have known that it wasn't unless I took that leap and like faced those fears.
That's one of my biggest things. I love having the ability to tell people about my experience, and not just speculate and not just go off what other people say or what I think. Said, you know, one thing is just like, went to this conference years ago, changed my perspective on a lot of things. It was a lady who was a therapist, for a geriatric therapist. She said there's two type of people at the end of the road. There's people who are super fulfilled, who tried everything, who took that leap of faith, or asked that person out, or this or that, and they're satisfied. And then there's just people who are just miserable because now they're in a place where they're too old to try. They're too old to make these mistakes and to do all these things. And I was like, I never, or I don't want to be the person that is on a whole bunch of what ifs.
Yes.
I don't want to know what it would be like if I moved to Dubai. I don't want to know what it would be like if the what ifs, they just, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. So a lot of things that I do these days is in an effort to be able to share my experience with people.
Yes.
And tell people firsthand what it's like and encourage them either to, or maybe not to, or if they can do what they want. But I appreciate the fact that a lot of times in my life, I can tell you what it was like. Whether it was great, whether it was trash, whether I do it again, or whether I won't. But I can appreciate, so many people who've taken, these leaps of faith and taken all these great risks because we have the stories to tell and to share with other people.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing part of your story. I don't even think I dug as deep as we have time for, but what I do want to get from you is for you to share just 3 tips that you would give anyone listening here. I don't like to box people in. You can share it on whatever you like. But I definitely always like our listeners to walk away with something. So please share with us 3 tips that you have for us today.
Yes. So for folks who are wanting to create a life in another place, leaving country, becoming an expat, an immigrant, whatever language feels resonant. First, the thing that keeps coming up, like there's a tip that I was thinking about, but what keeps coming up is to believe that you can. And I say that because, you might hear my story and you're just like, yes, people say Meckell does everything that she says she's going to do, which is like, I feel like I am that person that is going to try to see things through in a way that feels, aligned. But literally, if I could do it, you could do it. So that would be my first tip, is like, believe that you can, like actually see yourself being able to manifest it. Because that's really, when I meet people abroad, when I hear people's stories, that's really the defining factor. The folks that are still in the United States who have the dream that haven't brought it to fruition yet are the people who have created their own barriers, that think I could never, or I have to wait until after this, after this, after that, after that. So believe that you can. The second thing I would say is to set a date. For some of us, we might need to set that date a little farther than others, depending on what you have to consider. Maybe you have kids in school, or I met someone recently who they were in school, so they are trying to wait until they finish. Set your date, because that is going to be the seed that you're planting. That's what you're moving towards, and that's what you put your energy towards. And the third thing is, I'm kind of torn between, I'll say do your research. Do your research, like whatever you need to do on your end. Figure out where you want to go. Look at what the impact might be for you immigrating to that place, right? Like we're moving around. We live in a global world, but we are still impacting the local economies, the local community. So, give some thought to that. Maybe start saving your money. But it can really be that simple. And I think sometimes people overcomplicate it. And now that I have my Travel Well with Meckell platform on YouTube, I meet and hear stories from a lot of people who have either already taken the leap to live abroad, and a ton of people who are thinking about it. And that's the biggest thing I notice, is that people overcomplicate it. They're thinking, I could never, again, it goes back to that belief where they're just like, I don't know, I have to wait, or I have to plan. And the folks that actually made it happen, when I hear their stories, they're just like, yep, I set a date. Yep, I, did, like, they just got it into motion and didn't necessarily, you can never know what's going to happen. You can never be guaranteed, even if you have all your ducks in a row, everything in place, you still never know what your experience is going to be like. So why not just take the leap? I believe in you.
Hey, if you had that fourth, if it was burning, go ahead.
I think I was able to get them all into the do your research. Because the other thing I would have said is, just start saving wherever you can. You don't have to have a ton of money, especially depending on where you're going. Some places the dollar does stretch more. But be very, you don't necessarily, some people are like, I have to have like 5 years income saved and just like really be solidly secure. And it's just like, is that going to happen? Like, really, is that realistic for you? Trying to find something that's accessible.
I mean, and even to that point, I would just tell people what sealed the deal for me was being able to visit the country that I wanted to go to. You said you traveled to Mexico a number of times. I visited Dubai almost 4 years ago, just over like a Thanksgiving break, and I was like, this is it. I'm moving forward. And, not everybody has an opportunity, and big ups to the people who can blindly accept an assignment for things and go out there and make it do what it do. But honestly, for people who feel like it's far-fetched, take a vacation out there. Go visit. well, go visit somewhere close. Go visit anywhere, pretty much. Go visit anywhere and be able to experience a different culture, and it will light a different fire in you to go ahead and attain your dreams or go after them if it's something that you really want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, true. I think I would second that if you have the opportunity to visit, for sure. There are definitely people who are like, I can't, I'm going to have to just take the leap. Like, I don't have the means to, but that can definitely, especially if you can do it longer term, like a little longer than a vacation, that can really help you to see what your experience might be like outside of the U.S.
So for anybody who was interested in learning more about where we did meet, which is Video Ranking Academy with Think Media, well, I just gave you the information there, but it's Think Media Online, and we're in Video Ranking Academy. It is where we are learning how to build out our YouTube platforms to make a living and an income and create full-time content online, while also learning how to structure it in a way where we can make money. So, what else for in your experience, Meckell, with VRA? I'm not sure how long you've been in. I'm pretty new to it, but how has your experience been thus far?
I'm really new to VRA too. I think I had just joined maybe the day or two before you and I met, but I have been with the Think Media team and just following their work for more than a year, and it has strengthened my understanding of YouTube as a platform so much. So I do feel like I have a lot more clarity on the direction. And, I've been talking about holistic wellness work and how that was able to support me in moving abroad, but it really has sparked a passion doing YouTube for the past more than a year to create more travel content. So that's an area that's growing for me. And through VRA, I am finding a path towards doing this full time. So
I know for me, it's definitely given me a blueprint to understand what I'm doing. I have the capability to learn things pretty quickly, and I'm thankful for that. So within the past 3 years that I've been abroad, I've picked up a camera, learned how to edit, and things of that nature. So it's me learning the back end and the structure behind things and the purpose behind stuff to implement it into my practices that I've appreciated so much. And I've torn through, the majority of the content that I have access to, and I'm super grateful for it. But I wanted to make sure that, we thank Think Media, but also gave people who are watching, if you have an interest in starting a podcast or, creating a channel on YouTube that you would like to grow to hopefully make some income from it, that you looked into it. And and as we are continuing to, go through the process and support one another, you can see we've built a community already, and we were barely in it. And so we want to thank VRA and the Think Media community for that as well. I'm looking forward to more collaborations in the future.
Yeah, community is everything, y'all. So if you can connect with other people on that path, it makes a huge difference. And
that's another thing about being an expat too, or even an entrepreneur, the importance of community, because that's the crux of the matter. Because when you do move abroad, it's a lot to be alone, and so building a community, I was fortunate to, build a community with certain teachers here when I moved abroad, and, branching out, I attend a church and create a community there. How have you been able to build a community there where you are?
Listen, I am in community heaven right now. Like, I have met some of the dopest people. I have made some of the most amazing, most authentic, beautiful friendships and connections with folks since I've been, in my adult life, probably. It's with more ease. Because I think, like, when I moved to the Bay Area more than 8 years ago, people are like, it takes time to make friends in your adult life, and no, it has been so beautiful. I think that's one of the reasons that I also just am so sold on Mexico City. I have met a community of folks here who I feel very supported by, and I am happy to support, and we're just growing. We're coming together. We're showing up for each other. We're cooking for one another. It's just, I feel really held in this community. And I don't know if it's the type of personalities that become expats. I don't know if it's just beautiful timing, but it has really afforded me a different experience of friendship than I'd had in a long time.
That's awesome. I concur. I've met some of my best friends while living abroad out here. It's been life-changing. And so I'm super grateful for that as well. Well, Meckell, I want to thank you so much for everything that you shared. I wish you the best on your journey. And once again, congratulations on your 1-year anniversary being today. That's awesome. I also want to make sure that we get all the places and spaces that we can follow and support you. So please let us know.
Yes. You can follow not only my journey as an expat in Mexico, but also I share tips for people who are wanting to leave the United States on my YouTube channel, Travel Well with Meckell, which is at YouTube/Travel Well with Meckell, Meckell. I also just started an Instagram, okay? And yeah, I have a lot of things with Instagram right now because they canceled one of my IGs, but I just started this. It's _Meckell_. And so you can also follow me at that same handle on TikTok as well. And yeah, I'm always happy to connect with folks. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to ask questions. If you want some more structured advice about leaving the United States, I also do one-on-one consultations with folks. So be happy to connect with you.
Thank you so much. So, well, people, thank you for joining us for another episode of Modern Day Unicorns. If you are a unicorn yourself or you know anybody, please feel free to connect with me. I'd love to have a conversation with them. Do me a favor and like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so we can continue to support other entrepreneurs or people doing awesome things all over the world to share their information and encourage you. Until next time, we'll see you.